I've decided to do a little bit of work in my room, so today we're going to learn how to make these curtains. A couple of months ago, late at night, about 11, when I should have been in bed, I realized I needed something for another project. So off to Walmart I go. While I'm there, I see this fabric on clearance. Oh my, wait a minute. I tell myself, I can't pass up such a good deal. I know. I'll make curtains for my bedroom. How much fabric will I need? No idea how big the window is. Maybe 2 times 6, no. 12 plus 3 divided by 5. Okay, 3 yards should be good. All windows are different sizes, so I couldn't really put in measurements. If you are interested in making your own curtains, leave a comment and I'll send you my email address. Then I'll email you a spreadsheet so you just plug in the numbers. If you buy everything and have it all ready to go, you can make these curtains in a day. The hardest part about making them was figuring out all the measurements. I found out 3 yards was not enough, and since the fabric was on clearance a couple of months ago, I knew they wouldn't have any more of that fabric. So I had to go a different direction. I went back to Walmart and found a different fabric to make the loops at the top. I cut the fabric in half so that I would have 2 1.5 yard pieces of fabric. And the nice thing about this fabric is it did have a nice pattern, so I didn't really have to measure the whole thing. I just had to measure the very beginning. I flipped the fabric over about a 1/2 inch and then I pressed it. And again, I did use the pattern to guide on what the 1/2 inch was. Then I measured 2 inches. This is the bottom that I'm working on, by the way. Measured 2 inches and I pressed that. After I pressed it all the way across, I did go ahead and pin it so that it would be secure while I sew. I sewed 1/8 of an inch from the very edge. For the sides, I pressed a 1/2 inch like I did for the bottom, but this time when I folded it over the second time, I only did 1 inch instead of the 2. I also folded over the corner into a triangle, and that's so it wouldn't stick out. And again, I sewed 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and then I did the corners a little bit different though. I cut 16 8 by 5 pieces. So I cut across 8 inches and then I cut that into 5-inch pieces. So for the top part, that would be 3 inches times 2 for each side, and then on the bottom where it's going to be sewed on, that would be 1 inch times 2 for a total of 8. I folded them in half lengthwise inside out and sewed a 1/2 inch seam. Make sure when you start and finish each one that you go backwards and forward so it doesn't come apart. All machines have a button somewhere on the sewing machine to go backwards. I pressed the seam open, then I turned it inside out. After they were all pressed and turned inside out, I made sure the seam was in the center and I pressed it. Then I folded it in half and pressed it again. Did the same for all of them. I folded it over 1 inch and then I pressed it. Since I used the whole width of the fabric and it still had the centerfold, I was able to use that as a midpoint. I had 8 tabs on each panel, so of course I didn't start from the very middle. I went 2.5 inches from each side, then I spaced my tabs 5 inches apart. The reason I started from the middle was so that if I was a little off on either direction, at the last one I could just adjust it. I sewed a 1/4 inch seam at the bottom. Then I turned the fabric around and sewed 1/8 of an inch seam at the top. I pressed both panels and they were ready for hanging. I love the way they turned out, only now I really want to paint my walls a different color. That will have to wait. Next week I will make some throw pillows for my daybed.